Welcome to Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp.
And I'm Melissa Delp.
Today we're looking at Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Carlton House, and Queen's Park. Now, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is published by Space Cowboys. It's a co-op deduction game for one or more players, and each case takes about 90 minutes to play.
Players take on the role of the Baker Street irregulars who are trying to solve mysterious cases. This volume includes some refreshed cases that were originally published in the 1980s as the Queen's Park Affair and the Mansion Murders.
Let's look at the components. There are 10 books. 7 of them are individual cases, and 3 of them are a 3-day adventure exploring the mysteries of Queen's Park. There's a map of London, maps of the Carlton House in Queen's Park, a London directory, newspapers that correspond to the different cases, a special envelope dedicated to the Queen's Park Affair, and an extremely helpful list of informants on the back of the rulebook.
Most of the mysteries start with you at 221B Baker Street, learning what the mystery is that you're trying to solve. It could be that someone was murdered, that something was stolen, or someone might be missing. Once you get that information, you can then dive into the case book to follow the leads and find out what's going on.
Some locations are printed on the map, but you may need to look up someone in the directory to see where they live and then locate their story in the casebook. You read that section and hopefully find out more info that will lead you to solving the case. It's up to the players to decide where they want to go and what leads they want to follow.
Once you think you've solved the case, you go to the back of the book and answer the questions to the best of your ability. Then you open the envelope to see what the real answers are and how many points you scored. The book also has a solution story that you can read, which gives you a path you could have taken to arrive at the answers. Don't be discouraged if you visited a lot more places than Sherlock Holmes.
This volume includes 2 additional areas, the Carlton House and Queen's Park. For the cases involving the Carlton House, you actually get to explore the house. It's divided into the basement floor, the ground floor, and the first floor. And you can find different people in different rooms, just like you would find people at different places in London.
The Queen's Park map is used specifically for the 3-day mystery called the Queen's Park Affair. For this case, you also open up the special envelope that gives you some initial leads and a timesheet that helps you keep track of your movements.
There are special rules for the Queen's Park Affair written in the back of the main rulebook. Each of the 3 days you have from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. to investigate that day's casebook. Moving from location to location takes a certain amount of time based on the distance, and each place you visit will tell you how long you were there, ranging from 5 minutes all the way up to 90 minutes. Some places are definitely worth visiting more than others. We actually did the Queen's Park Affair over 3 consecutive days. It was kind of fun to see how it all connected together. Some of the information was even different depending on the time of day when you visited, and I liked it when you were at these different places. They each took a different amount of time.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about this because it did increase the intensity knowing that you could only follow a certain number of leads or you only had a certain amount of time. But I like really exploring and following all those little rabbit trails and following them to the end. So for me, it was a little frustrating.
Yeah, sometimes we didn't agree on what the next step should be or even what mysteries we should follow.
Now for the other cases, we played them with differing amounts of people. Memorial Day, we had a party, and so we played with 8. It did work, but it was a little difficult keeping everyone's attention because not everyone had something to do. I like the game a little bit better with 3 or 4 players because then you can give each person a specific responsibility. Someone has the map, someone else the newspaper, the directory, and then someone has the casebook. So everyone has their own specific thing. Now, of course, you are going to want to give pen and paper to everyone so that they can write down important information.
Well, write down important information that they think is important.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention, if you're not careful, you could miss an important lead or an important clue, and that could leave you wondering, what in the world do we do? We have no idea what the next step is.
I loved Sherlock Holmes growing up, and I read all the stories. So of course I was excited to immerse myself in the city of London and help the esteemed Sherlock Holmes solve these mysteries.
One of the issues with this version of Consulting Detective is that there are some typos in the book, and you can tell in places that it was translated from another language because the grammar isn't quite right. Sometimes the order of words is a little backwards, and sometimes not the quite right word is used. There's one sentence where her head falls back in a loud noise
Instead of with a loud noise.
But these don't keep you from understanding the case. The main thing is that it pulls you out a little bit from that immersive experience.
Now, that's a minor issue, I think, because the strengths of Consulting Detective are the overall story, the mystery, the lead you're trying to follow. And even one of the highlights for me is the Carlton house, because you're in a more confined space. You can see where you are in, or where things are happening in the house, where the doors are, rooms that are adjacent to each other, or even where things are in the house. And that's more of like a visual element in this game.
Now, some of the stories, there's a lot of information up front that someone is reading before you get into making any decisions and deciding what leads to follow. So, and in some of them, it felt a little long. Your group has to be okay with listening to a lot of information, because that's what this game is. It's people reading out of a book and you picking up the clues.
Now, you could download the app, which actually does some narration for the beginning of each story. I like the art style of the Consulting Detective. Some people don't like that there are illustrations in the book because they think it might give too much of the story away, but I think they're kind of helpful. And the overall aesthetic of the game is good, from the map of London to the newspapers, even to the stains on the different documents.
I personally enjoy mystery-based games, story games, things like Time Stories and Mythos Tales, and overall I've enjoyed the Consulting Detective games. Now, one thing you do have to keep in mind, though, is that you're not going to have all the information.
No.
Yes, there's deductive reasoning going on, but you do have to make some logical leaps. So you have to look beyond just the obvious clues.
If you're looking for a good co-op game and like solving mysteries, or you love Sherlock Holmes, or you're looking for the next adventure in the Consulting Detective series, we highly recommend Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Carlton House, and Queen's Park. Pick it up at your friendly local game store, and be sure to subscribe to Tantrum House.
21B Baker Street, learning from Sherlock Holmes what the mystery is that you're trying to solve. Let me try that again. Most of the mysteries take place.
And I really liked